Welcome to Pegwarmers. I'm Kevin, and I'm here to talk about toys. Today, we're kind of talking about a toy show doubleheader. Over the weekend, I attended 2 different toy shows. I have some B-roll from both locations, as well as my haul. So, I hope you enjoy this week's episode of Pegwarmers. The first show I attended was NJCC. That was on Saturday. My buddy Tony, who runs RetroCon, came to my house and rode with me to that show. It takes place in the lobby and ballroom of the Holiday Inn in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. They've recently redid the hotel, I guess during COVID, and I missed the last NJCC. So it was neat to see it kind of spruced up and looking bright and white, and it almost felt bigger. I've always classified NJCC as a Transformers and G.I. Joe show, but there was a lot more modern stuff there this time, I felt like. Some of the smaller independent toy companies were well represented with not necessarily official booths, but vendors who were selling a lot of Boss Fight Studio toys and Four Horsemen Designs toys. As I mentioned, my buddy Tony came with me. We met up with Chris from Long's Toys and got to hang out all day. My buddy Josh showed up. Some of you guys may know him from the Patreon Discord. He came to the show to check things out. He was looking for some cool stuff for his Masters of the Universe collection. He doesn't have a channel, so I can spoil his haul and let you guys know. He picked up a Castle Grayskull. It wasn't really a surprise, but Josh brought me a vintage card style classifieds gung-ho figure. He had heard that I was looking for one, and then texted me the other day saying he had his eyes on one and grabbed it for me and brought it to me at the show, which was awesome. So excited to have this guy in my collection. I just love how this version of Gung Ho looks so much more like the vintage toy. Walking around the showroom floor, I saw the Mattel Voltron. Of course, I own this. Mine's currently packed away, but it's an impressive toy anytime you see it. And it was very cool to see that on display. My eye kept gravitating towards these foreign G.I. Joes. The Night Landing, the Bomb Disposal were both from Argentina. And there was also a Fun School Cobra Claw glider, which all 3 of those things are pretty neat and pretty hard to come by. I got a little nostalgic seeing this early 2000s G.I. Joe playset. This Cobra Mountain set was actually a retool of the Geonosian battle set from episode 2. I never had this, but I was really into the new sculpt era of G.I. Joe when they were coming out. Just excited to have more G.I. Joe. I cannot remember what this yellow car is called. I remember seeing the commercials for it. It's not like the Animal where the tiger paws come out of the wheels, but these wheels could sort of like suck in to get more grip or to, traverse terrain better. I totally remember seeing the ads for this car and thought it was really funny to get to see it there.
Power tires. Black. It's got all the muscle you'll need. Black. Power tires. Black. Batteries not included. Black. Another power machine from Galoo.
YouTube recently recommended a video to me about Heroescape, and then I thought it was funny to see it in real life, almost the reverse of how things usually happen, where I see something and then the computer algorithm shows me it on my screen. There's a lot of model kits. One of the things that was pretty impressive to me, I'm not a big Transformers collector, but there was a lot of vintage Transformers paperwork at the one vendor's booth, and it was kind of neat to see it. There was pamphlets from the early stuff and some lenticular stickers. The show really does have a nice array of things. Lots of cool vintage things from different eras, as well as more recent toys. I was blown away by these Cops and Crooks heads. The guy running this booth went to the detail of scanning these heads, and he said he had to individually resize them till they would work on a G.I. Joe body because the Cops didn't have a universal buck. I think there were $3 or $3 or $4 to Cops, because there was a skinny buck for people like Bad Vibes. I think there was a standard buck for most of the characters. There was a heavy buck for Louis the Plumber, and then a really heavy buck for Big Boss. I don't know if there was more variations than that, but he really said he had to do a lot of work, but these were incredible. There was a lot of fun bins to hunt through. And this gray-haired Fisto kind of blew my mind. One of the things I grabbed at NJCC was this Super 7 Reaction Bazooka in Arctic Gear figure. The card is like perfect. It's not even punched, and it was $5, and that's like exactly what I want to pay for these guys. I always liked Bazooka in the winter coats. In fact, I liked all the Joes in the winter coats. G.I. Joe the movie made me kind of fall in love with this look for the characters. So at $5, I had to grab him. Those Cops and Crooks heads really, really impressed me. I love the Hasbro Cops and Crooks toy line. And so I ended up picking up a Barricade head and a Dr. Bad Vibes head. I want to put the Barricade head on a G.I. Joe Barricade body. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with Mindbender. Whoa, that's a Freudian slip or whatever. I don't know who I'm going to put Bad Vibes head on. There's nobody really with like a lab coat body, so I'm going to have to get creative there. But I'm going to try and paint these up and see what I can do with them. I just think they're really cool. I should have probably gotten more. They were $5 a piece, which is not outrageous for a custom piece. But, you know, more than I wanted to just spend buying 4 and 5 different heads that I may or may not ever get around to doing the custom figures with. If I see this vendor again someday, I may try and pick up 1 or 2 more. This day and age, I don't buy a lot of 3 3/4 inch Joes anymore because I have pretty much all the ones I'm looking for, unless I'm buying them specifically for their accessories. But every once in a while, I see an Army Builder at a good price. I couldn't pass up on this Track Viper. He's the driver to the Hiss 2 and was in really nice shape, so I grabbed him. I was rummaging through little bins of accessories, and I found this pewter Beastman figure. This figure came from a little, like, paint-your-own model set. I actually have one somewhere, one kit that's like the box is crunched, but it came with a little plastic landscape piece, like a little hill, and several characters in little pewter or lead miniature forms that you can paint. And this Beastman probably wasn't too bad of a paint job originally. Can't tell if he's broken or maybe the whip is just sculpted to go down his arm. I think that is the case. The whip goes down the back of his arm so that way it isn't so thin and would break. I probably will strip this at some point. I don't know if I'll just leave it plain metal or if I'll decide to try and paint it someday. I do like painting miniatures. One of the vendors at NJCC, who's been there forever, Kevin Watts, has an amazing G.I. Joe collection. Lots of cool stuff. Stuff that has blown my mind he's had over the years. He was selling a lot of weird and odds and ends, paperwork and things like that, and I picked up the G.I. Joe Fact and Yearbook. This is not a paperback book that I knew about for a long time. I kind of found out about it recently. The inside of the book contains reprints of some of the characters' file cards. It has pages from the Marvel Comics. It has some like word searches and other puzzles and things for kids to do, as well as some survival skill tips. I mean, just a lot of interesting things. I'm hoping to get a chance to like read through this book and maybe, you know, break it down a little bit more, maybe share some more of the contents of it with you guys. It's copyrighted 1984 from Ventura Books. Another piece of G.I. Joe paperwork that I picked up from Kevin was this Live the Adventures Assignment 1 Invade Cobra Island certificate and patch. This was part of a mail-away promotion during the Live the Adventure years, the 86 toy line. It's based on that. This certificate is signed by Hawk. I mean, that's pretty impressive. The last thing I picked up at NJCC was one of those foreign toys that had been catching my eye. I picked up an Argentinian G.I. Joe bomb disposal unit. This is not sealed, but it's sealed content. So the tape on the box is actually broken at this end, but everything inside is still in its bag. So you can see, it's not in English, but it's really cool. It's neat to see these kind of things. And generally, there's some slight differences even with the actual toys. I believe the plastic color is actually different on this. It's a much deeper green than it is on the American release. Along with the price of admission, you get raffle tickets at NJCC, and every hour or so they pull some raffle prizes. And, we usually hang out for a couple rounds of the raffle. Nick and Tony and I ended up going out to lunch, had some great conversations talking about toys, talking about the new Power Ranger special that's going to be coming out. And then we raced back to the Holiday Inn for one last raffle round and just look around one last little bit before we headed out. While we're in the parking lot, Tony mentioned going to Play With This in Merchantville, New Jersey. Scott, who owns Play With This, always has a table at NJCC. We actually got to see, a bunch of his stuff there. They always sell a ton of G.I. Joe parts. They have bins of G.I. Joe shells and things like that. And if you wear your wristband from the show to the store, you get a discount. And they're not that far apart. So Chris followed us over to Play With This, and we looked around for a while. Play With This always has a really great mix of vintage and modern stuff. There's always one or two items from really obscure lines sprinkled throughout the displays, which I love. I always check out the G.I. Joe case. Well stocked. Look at that Ninja Viper. Lots of other cool figures in here. And then, from the Defiant, a Payload and Hardtop. Now, it doesn't look like they have their accessories, but those are hard figures to find. Even though I have the vintage Star Wars figures, I always check out the vintage case. I really should make trying to get the accessories for my vintage Star Wars figures more of a priority, but it's so hard to tell what's a real weapon and what's a replacement weapon that I just kind of haven't really finished. I picked up 2 items while I was at Play With This. I got a Kenner Superpowers Red Tornado. He had his cape. This is a pretty impressive figure. I'm trying to figure out if he works. I'm not totally sure how Red Tornado works. I can twist him up. I think this is it. I was having trouble with it the other day. And when I squeeze his legs, he doesn't quite... Oh, he kind of unwinds. I don't know. I'm not sure if he's wearing out or if I'm going to have to buy another copy of him to get a better action feature. But the capes are really hard to find on some of these guys. So I was excited to pick him up. Superpowers is a really great toy line. I don't have all of it, and I'm not even that constantly collecting it, but occasionally, if I see a figure that's in good shape, and I haven't spent the budget for that day or that toy show, I try and pick up something. The other thing that I grabbed at Play With This was one of the Super 7 Animaniacs figures. I looked at the Goofy Unicron prototype figure. They made a reaction figure based on the prototype toy of the Unicron from the Transformers movie toy. It's hilarious. And I was thinking about buying that. And then I saw the Animaniacs figures. They did not have Dot, so I couldn't get all 3 of the Warners. So I decided to get Yakko. I decided to get Wacko. I think he's my favorite of them. And I'll probably open this up and just, little shelf fodder. Just kind of fun. So Sunday morning, before going to Tony's to then go to the Delaware show, I stopped by the local flea market. I had a little bit of time to kill. I'd left the house, but was going to get to Tony's too early. The local flea market here just recently opened again, and it closes down for the winter. And it was cold and windy on Sunday morning. So I ended up making a pretty quick lap around the place, but I did come up with one G.I. Joe item. I found a General Hawk from the early 2000s. This is probably actually General Tomahawk. This is from the era where they were using multiple colors of plastic and then doing like a wash on them. So this is the Talking Commander version, kind of repainted. And I don't need this guy in my collection, but he was only $1. I couldn't leave him behind. The April Fool's Toy Show is held at the Nurse Shrine Temple in Newcastle, Delaware. The Saturday beforehand is always a train show. The Sunday part of that weekend is always a toy show. I've been going for several years, for quite a long time, and it's one of my favorite shows for finding a lot of weird vintage stuff. I'm really I'm really happy with a lot of the things I've picked up there over the years. While I was there, I ran into Mike Bro from The Bro Show. Some of you guys may know him from some of the earliest episodes of Pegwarmers. Look who we ran into at the Delaware Toy Show.
That's right, it's me, it's the Bro Show, Sans Alf. I mean, it's just me, so I'm really cool, right? They got some really cool toys here. I'm trying not to buy too much, but, you know, at Perkle 47, she's already bought some, so what can I do? Gotta keep her happy.
His wife was there with him, shopping. She's an avid strawberry shortcake collector. This Batman RC caught my eye. I've been looking at a lot of the Batman and Batman Returns toys recently, and I totally forgot that they made this, but as soon as I saw it, it flooded me with some nostalgia. The Independence Day jet, I'm pretty sure we've brought this up on the channel before, maybe in an actor's likeness video or something, or maybe it's just an even older video from SEO Toy Review days. But I feel like I've talked about this jet with Mike Bro and possibly also Jordan from Geek Anything in some older episodes, so I had to grab some footage of that. These boxed G.I. Joe vehicles were blowing my mind. They're not sealed, but the contents were sealed. So the box is open, but the bags inside were never open, so the vehicles are unassembled. Sealed vehicles are expensive, so I don't usually bite at that kind of thing. My buddy Ed Rents, one of my favorite vendors, had a Stiltman with quite a few sets of Stiltman legs, which was making me think of the Build-A-Figure episode of Pegwarmers, where Jordan from Geek Anything was showing off his Stiltman, who had a ton of pair of legs. I also saw a few Land of the Lost figures, which again made me think of an older episode of Pegwarmers. We took a deep dive into that line. I resisted buying these because after filming the Pegwarmers episode, I actually thinned my Land of the Lost collection a little bit. I still have a lot of Land of the Lost stuff, but not quite as much as I had beforehand. Hey, look, they have the Crystal Sword variant. These TMNT Snugglies were pretty cool. I don't think they're official. I looked at them for a little while. It was neat the way they did the shells, and I thought the almost tie-dyed look or gene-washed look of the green skin tone fabric was pretty cool. On Saturday, while we were at NJCC, Tony and Chris and I were talking about the Police Academy toy line, and then I saw this Police Academy figure, and this is one that I never see. I don't think I've ever seen this one loose. And then to see it carded at the Delaware show was pretty impressive. I love the 3 3/4 inch G.I. Joe line, but I really don't know a whole lot about the 12-inch line. But I am always impressed with some of the accessories, the outfits, the vehicles, and things like that. This tower for the 60s G.I. Joe toy line is super impressive. Look at how gigantic that thing is. While at NJCC, Tony and I were talking about some of the Masters of the Universe Origins figures, some of the promo ones from Mattel Creations, and Tony mentioned that he had gotten an extra one of Cobra Khan. He wasn't necessarily super in love with the figure, and I said, well, I would definitely buy your extra one. So I ended up picking that up from Tony. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this figure. Camo Khan is actually a South American repaint. They had the rights to use the molds to make their own He-Man things. And for the most part, they were pretty faithful, but occasionally they did change colors or kind of do their own thing. And so Cobra Khan was released with buzz-off pincher hand arms and a camouflage type paint scheme. Fans have then come to know him as Camo Khan instead of Cobra Khan. And they did a tribute version to him in Motu Classics and in Motu Origins. One of the first things I bought at the Delaware show was a set of New Adventures of He-Man armor and helmet. I'm actually on the hunt for the Power Sword for New Adventures He-Man, but I couldn't walk away from these accessories. I think I might have the helmet, but I'm pretty sure I don't have the armor for my loose He-Man. Will and Amy had this stuff. They're vendors that I really love to support. They're local people. I see Will at the flea markets a lot, and Amy and her brother Ben are always at toy shows and stuff like that. They're great people to talk to, great people to support. They actually run a toy show in Mullica Hill, New Jersey. I will try to put some details about that, on the channel soon. That's another event that I hope to go to. I picked up a Batgirl from the DC Superhero Girl line. If you watch the channel a lot, you may have heard me mention this line a few times. My friends' daughters really love this line, and so I've been collecting some of the figures for them when I see them. This one has a removable helmet. She's actually a vehicle pack-in. She came with like a Bat Cycle, so it's a different version of Barbara Gordon than is in the standard release from the line. To be honest, I did not remember that there was a Doom Cycle in the Mattel Secret Wars toy line. But I saw this and instantly knew it was like a remold or a repaint of the Turbo Cycle from Secret Wars, the Captain America motorcycle. So I was really interested in it. I ended up buying it for $5, which was really cheap. It is missing one little like cannon or something that goes up on the back here. Then when I brought it home and did a little bit of research, because I thought maybe this was like a knockoff or like a reuse. No, it turns out almost all the vehicles, or not all, but a lot of the vehicles were done in good guy and bad guy colors. So I'm glad to have this in my Secret Wars collection. Kind of like Superpowers. I don't actively seek out toys from the Secret Wars line too much, but, you know, sometimes they fall into my lap. I see one for a good price, and then I do like to snag them because they are very nostalgic for me growing up with them as, like, my first superhero toys. I picked up a stack of these Kenner Legacy magazines. I hope to, you know, really kind of look through these and maybe even distill some of this information into a video. They feature a lot of different Kenner toy lines. There seems to be some sculpts here for like 2-ups and prototype things. This is the Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight figure that would have been released had Kenner been able to keep making Star Wars toys after the end of the movies, like in 1986. I really think this kind of history stuff is cool, and so I was very excited to be able to pick those up. I bought a She-Ra roleplay shield. This is gold plastic. Tony, who went to the show with me, said I should be very careful with this. He says it does get brittle. It suffers from the gold plastic syndrome. He says he and his wife had one, and it basically cracked and shattered. It's got a fun little like hologram sticker here that says She-Ra. It's got this starburst type background that kind of reminds me of the She-Ra's dress on the vintage figure. It's got little tiny straps on the back to hold it. I'm not sure how I'm going to display this. It was kind of explained to me that it came with a sword and was part of like a role play set, but not really like a costume or something. So thought that was kind of cool. And the last item I picked up at the Delaware show also came from Will and Amy. This is a Rad Wings glider. It zooms over 80 feet. This is G.I. Joe branded. It's got General Hawk in his talking battle commander outfit here. There is a helmet you put on your finger that is used to launch the little glider with like a rubber band type mechanism. Really strange, really odd kind of toy. You know, almost anything to tie in here. The plane isn't even really a G.I. Joe plane necessarily. It almost looks more like the Cobra Rattler than it does a G.I. Joe aircraft. But I really like this weird licensed stuff. It was a busy weekend to hit 2 toy shows. It really ate up a lot of time this weekend, but it was a lot of fun. I would love it if shows were spaced out a little bit more evenly. I'd love to go to like 1 toy show a month. That would be perfect for me if there were 12 toy shows spaced out around the year. But oftentimes it's kind of feast or famine. You know, there's a bunch in a row and then none for a little while, and you kind of have to decide, okay, there's going to be 2 or 3 this month, and, you know, I can't give up all of my weekends away from the family or you know, work commitments and things like that. So which ones am I going to go to? But it was fun to get to go to both of these this weekend and, you know, hang out with my toy collecting friends and get to share the experience with you guys. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, maybe even share it with a toy collecting friend. If you want to support the channel financially, consider joining our Patreon group. The Discord has a pretty active conversation going on there. You can see pictures of what Josh bought at NJCC. Thanks for hanging on the peg with me.